Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Star Wars Lads. For our continuing coverage of The Bad Batch Season 3, we're going to talk about Episode 9. The Harbinger is next week's episode, or I guess this week's episode. We're recording a little early. Make sure liking the video helps us out a lot with the algorithm, and subscribe if you're new. We're covering the rest of The Bad Batch Season 3, and we've already covered a lot of it, so a lot of great content already on the channel if you'd like to check out past stuff. Comment below, give us your predictions and speculation for what might happen in The Harbinger. All right, now to get into our predictions. So the Harbinger is a very interesting title. When you think of somebody who's a Harbinger, you often think of death. Like, that's what I think of. Somebody bringing about the end. Also made me, do some research and look up stuff in Star Wars that have been called the Harbinger, and it's pretty much all ships. So it could be something to do with a ship. It could be something to do the more literal version of it, which is a bringer of doom. But Sanak, what were your thoughts for what the Harbinger might mean for next week's episode as we continue the search for the bounty hunters that know about the M count, and also who is Fennec talking to at the end of episode 8?
Yeah, I think those are intrinsically tied together. I think whoever she is talking to could be the Harbinger. I really think that is the logical way to make this last week's episode like a really valuable watch, especially on rewatches. It is a little bit more than just a fun mission of the week sort of episode. But I think when I think of the Harbinger, like you said, it's a forerunner of bad things, a forerunner of things to come. And I think when we think about Star Wars as a whole, that name, that title that we've been given here, it really does feel like it's talking a little bit more about what they were talking about before the season had dropped. Rao and Corbett about how this season is going to be really connected to all the different eras of Star Wars. And to me, that means that whoever appears here is going to be crucial to our understanding of cloning, our understanding of the dark side's influence on that, why eventually a strand cast is the chosen route as opposed to just the old EU way of just making things on clones, like force clones with special methodologies. I think this will definitely be things that will be relevant to the sequel trilogy's understanding, relevant to the plans of Palpatine, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a force sensitive. I think the popular answer for a Harbinger would probably be Asajj, and I think that could still be the case, but I don't want Asajj to necessarily be just alive from Dark Disciple, right? Just like crawling her way out, even if that is a cool image. If she's going to come back, her resurrection has to be something that Hemlock and the Empire, and by extension Palpatine, would be really interested in uncovering. It's very interesting, especially with Dune being out right now, that there's literally a thing called the Water of Life that like creates that final transformation for Night Sisters. It's derived from something called the Sleeper, which is like this aquatic amphibious creature that's found in Dathomir. So theoretically, all these kind of Dune allusions and connections here could be a way for her to come back, and I think that would be more interesting than say for her to be on the trail of finding out all these M count possibilities, all these M count candidates. And I think the Harbinger in that case could then be Quinlan Vos. I definitely could see him work a little bit more on the shadier side, especially after Order 66, as like a means for survival, a way for him to stay ahead of things with the path, especially because M count's a pretty good way to like figure out, okay, these are people who would have been normally selected to be Padawans. I don't know if that's necessarily what's going to happen. I would assume that if we're going to use either of those characters, be more of like a second half or like a tag for the double episodes that's going to come the following week. So that kind of leaves me with two other options, and I think the one that I would personally love is Boba Fett. I'd love for him to be a sign of things to come, for his relationship with Omega, for what the clones are like, why Omega is special. If we tie it back more intrinsically to the mystery around Omega, seeing someone who is also unaltered, is on some random mission for the Empire as a bounty hunter early in his career, and finding out that, hey, this clone that Fennec had once told me about might be someone that is very interesting for me to know and get to know, either as a bounty or as another Kaminoan survivor of sorts, right? A great way for him to think about his place in the galaxy, if he really has any connection with clones, be a little bit more relevant to the overall clone dynamics and the relationships that have been really instrumental to the Bad Batch. But I think that starts becoming a little too thematic, a little too figurative as opposed to plot focused. So that leaves me with my third option, which I think is, again, not as likely even compared to Boba. And I think that could be possibly a Bear Safi. I know we haven't seen her in well over a decade, but if we're going to talk about harbingers, maybe she could be the first Inquisitor that we see, like a sign of things to come for these dark side stewards to kind of come in and do their thing there, and then maybe draw out more famous characters like a Ahsoka or something. But then again, I think she's the farthest stretch that I just don't see any real way for her to be involved with the story. So, yeah, it definitely goes Ventress or Quinlan. It doesn't really matter which order, who comes first, but I think it does impact how we look at each character. Followed very far behind by Boba, and then followed much, much further behind by Barriss.
This is the general discourse online right now is that it is Ventress because we've seen her from the trailer. We know she's a bounty hunter or in the bounty hunter world prior to her death in Dark Disciple. So it does make some sense. She had an association with Boba Fett, who has an association with Fennec Shan. There's a lot of connections that could be made there. Harbingers being such a dark word, a word that does always indicate death to me. Makes it seem like Ventress is the strong possibility. However, the part of my heart and head that still really wants her to be some type of clone or resurrection, not just be out there living and that is explained off screen. Like that's the worst possible outcome in my head for her return. As somebody who loves Dark Disciple, I don't want to see that. So in my head, I'm like, I don't want it to be Ventress, but it is the stronger possibility because not showing whoever Fennec is talking to makes it seem like it's a higher level character than really anybody who we could possibly come up with who's not a part of the fabric of the story already. Wouldn't be a harbinger really, but the other person that it could be to me is Cad Bane. Cad Bane, Fennec Shan already have a relationship established in season one, even if antagonistic. They're respectful of each other. They're respectful of each other professionally. If Fennec were to reach back out to Cad Bane, there's precedent already set that he's involved in the Omega storyline. Like, I think this could be the episode we see Cad Bane come back into the fold. As for the Harbinger, again, like I said at the beginning of the video, there are a lot of Star Wars ships named the Harbinger. It could be some type of character that's brought in on a ship called the Harbinger. The most recent in canon use of the Harbinger was as the flagship for Captain Pelion, who obviously is involved in the Tanta situation, who is involved with Thrawn, and then subsequently all the work Filoni's doing to bring back a version of the Thrawn trilogy here for canon in live action with the Ahsoka season 2 and of course his movie. So could it have something to do with Pelion? And then Thrawn wouldn't be involved yet in this conflict, but Pelion is older. He could still be involved in this type of conflict, getting us used to what his role might be maybe in the last third of this season. Builds up Pelion as a character for when you bring him back from his Shadow Council scene into more stuff. Harbinger is also used as the name of a ship that Darth Sion ran in Legends. We already know the Eye of Sion's been used by Dave Filoni. Another connection there. It was also the Hammerhead class dreadnoughts. So like maybe we just see one of those appear, which we have seen in a lot of Rebellion material in closer to Rogue One era as well as in Rebels. That's another possibility. So there's a lot of things that could be tossed up here. There's also the possibility that maybe this episode jumps into a different place, right? Could we have an episode with Hemlock and Palpatine? Like we've been so focused on the Bad Batch perspective, we haven't gone back there in a long time. But we have had scenes this season with Hemlock and Nala Se, or Hemlock talking to other doctors. Emery Carr, we haven't seen for a few episodes. Could we go back to Tantus and have an episode that's just Tantus based? That's another intriguing possibility. And could we then learn more about Project Necromancer, which then leads us to Ventress, which then leads us to possibly learning a little bit more about these bounty hunts? I'd love to see that personally. I would love to go back to Tantus and see what's going on over there. Maybe even Omega could be the Harbinger, right? Like, if we learn about what her role is, maybe from the Tantus side before the Bad Batch actually finally discover what's so important about her, maybe we learn that Omega is actually the Harbinger of Doom, or the Harbinger of whatever they're bringing forth here in the Empire. Clones of Palpatine and all the things that are going to lead to his plan ultimately finally fulfilled all the way into the Rise of Skywalker. But there's a lot of things that this title could mean. There's a lot of things that could happen next episode. We want you to let us know what you think is going to happen in episode 9 of season 3 of The Bad Batch. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, like the video, helps us out a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you're new for more Bad Batch coverage. We'll continue to do these predictions and speculations every single week through the finale. And then, of course, we will be covering all these episodes live. So if you'd like to check out our live discussion of episode 8, you can check that video out as well. You can also check out our new review and live stream for episode 9, which will be out on Wednesday. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you all next time.